Hello everyone, we're back doing the tech talk. It is Friday, the 2nd of August, so we're going to get into it, have a bit of fun, and also just play the game, get some dailies done, and also some specials, since that's something I've been a little bit behind on the Battle Pass, getting stuff done, so going to focus on that. Hopefully you guys had a good week. We obviously had a lot of news this week, the Battle Pass stuff, the event stuff, the good old Alcione. But the main thing is, of course, the F-14 got announced yesterday. Now, it's not really a surprise that they went for a banger vehicle for the event, for the summer event, since they usually go for the best one. And I think overall it's quite nice. Kind of sucks that there isn't a loading screen, but there's everything else. So I think in general, I'm pretty happy with it. Would like to know your thoughts on the F-14 in the comments of this video. As usual, the Tech Talk, it's a podcast that we do every week, unless I'm super busy. And it's basically about War Thunder and your thoughts on things. So if you have any ideas, thoughts, questions, or whatever, stick them in the comments, so then we can go through them next time. Last time we talked a lot about kind of modern bombers and how they could fit into the game. And I think in general, at least the way that I see it, is they wouldn't fit very well. But I'm sure other people have different setups. So we have, first of all, House of Schmidt. So let's see what it says. Gaijin should replace the Assault PvE modes and Heli PvE with one combined arms PvE. It doesn't need to be the most popular mode. Sim is not very popular, but it's loved by a subset of the community because a good amount of thought was put into Sim. I'd imagine a PvE mode, if done right, would be similar. It would give a bunch of players what they want. More passive gameplay for all vehicles. Maybe more historical encounters, longer form gameplay, but allow for the implementation of modern strategic bombers and would finally give a full combined arms mode. It would also trim down some of the weaker game modes. The assault modes are an underdeveloped joke. Might as well just play the dynamic campaign. Heli PvE could pretty much be inserted into any PvE mode since it's so simplistic. Why not just combine these all into one PvE mode that includes all vehicles, even if the research is nerfed compared to the PvP gameplay? In general, the way that I see it is I'm fine with it, right? Like I don't with the PvE portion of the game, I think I'm more interested in the expansion of kind of single player campaign stuff. I think that stuff's really cool. But in terms of like, the assault game modes, heli PvE, stuff like that, if they wanted to combine them all into one, as long as the balancing was right, such as one type of vehicle doesn't just dominate the rest. Like, for example, if you combine them all, and the helicopters just destroy everything because the tanks can't kill anything because the helicopters destroy them first, that's obviously not great. But if they can get that balance right, and also at the same time, like, make it at least decently enjoyable, and also less rewards than the PvP stuff, because I don't want a situation that we've had in so many games in the past, where, because of people basically using it to grind, it kills off the PvP part of the game. That I'd be completely fine with it. I think in general, it's something that could be done, and it would mean that people would be able to do what they want and have a mode where they could generally grind. Like the ground game mode is, one of those kind of, it's part of it's something that is just there to be able to grind modifications and also get boosters, right? Like that's the whole point of it. And also just to give people a more chill, like, gameplay style. If they can replicate that in a different area with a, forces alongside of it, then yeah, go for it. Why not? Like I don't really see a negative with it. I think this is actually one of those things that would be really good from a community point of view. Like, once again, the great thing about War Thunder is there is so many options from a community point of view where you can build stuff. You can build vehicles. You can build camouflages. You can build cockpits. You can build missions. You can build modes. You can build maps. You can build whatever you want. Right? You can build whatever you want. So why not give it a go and see what happens? Hey Teddy, nice to see you. Like, these ideas, as somebody who like works in a field where a lot of it is about entrepreneurship, So the basic idea is you have a bunch. Let's say you have like a bunch of entrepreneurs, right? And they have a bunch of ideas, and then you need to like actually make them a reality and see if they're actually going to work. So actually do, you know, the proper work instead of just this pie in the sky thing. The part which is the most important to that is how efficient can you make the product in order to make it viable, not just for market, but also for other people to actually use. Because if it's crazy expensive, then it's worthless. And also at the same time, if the techniques aren't there to actually make it, it's also not going to work. So one of the most key parts of any business proposal or anything is, you know, the actual cost of making the damn thing, and if people are willing to purchase it for that price. It's a super important thing. Now, one of the ways to actually really further your cause in this, which is super useful in terms of not just War Thunder, but, you know, any product in the world, is to actually have a working prototype. Is to have, instead of just an idea of what you want it to be, actually have something that goes, hey, this is what I like or would like, this is what I'm demonstrating, we should do this. And it's like, okay, let's do it, right? The problem I have with a lot of these ideas is, in theory, they sound fantastic, but when it actually comes down to making them, I don't see them. And whenever I've seen people try and make these things, they've run into huge issues with the way that the game works, and mainly the big one is actually just desynchronization. Like, if you have all of these moving parts at the same time, the game engine just literally can't take it, right? Like it like whenever we used to do like the old sim battles, which were, you know, made by people, one of the big issues was it would just become unstable super quickly because there was too many things going on at once, and it would just break the game. And that's a problem, you know? Like, it's just one of those things which gets better with time, but still is a limitation. So you have to live inside of that limitation and still make the thing. So that's why working prototypes are super useful. That's why, you know, pushing out these ideas and trying them is the best part of it. So hopefully in the future, we can take some of these ideas and make them a reality. I think that's, you know, super useful. Assault is just free boosters, that's it? Well, it can also get you like parts and FPE and, you know, APF SDS, right? Which is something that a lot of vehicles need to be useful, which mainly people use it for. Hey Marin, nice to see you. Opened 10 esport packs and got the 7 same skins for the MiG-29. Jesus. Goddamn. Then we have Kwam Chan doing the timestamps. Thank you, Kwam Chan. That's very kind of you. Mercy Boo Cop. And there was also some timestamps last week done by somebody else, so I apologize for not thanking you, but it was attached to another comment. So I apologize, but thank you very much for that. But Mercy Boo Cop. Then we have Iden in the Rain. How to fix bombers. Here we go. The max, number 1. The max BR prop bombers should be 6.3, and that is purely for the TU4. The B29 is 6.0, and everything else gets moved down respectively. No, that's stupid. You know why? Because they used to be that BR, and you couldn't kill them. This is why they are at their current BR. Those vehicles used to be lower BR than they are now, and they were busted. You could not destroy them, for the love of God. Just because they have piston engines doesn't mean they should just face piston aircraft. It's a silly idea, and has been from the start. At 6.3, you cannot destroy them. So in every match, you would just have 4 TU4s versus 4 B29s, and what would end up happening is you would have no control over the match. You wouldn't be able to do anything. It would just be down to them who wins the match, because they would be unkillable. If you want examples of this, JU288, ME264, the TU4 back in the day, the B29 as well, the B57 back in the day, the B17 as well. There is a common problem with all of these things, and it's the fact that they had the ability to take over games just by themselves because people can't catch them and destroy them. Even the Lincoln was able to do this back in the day, and still technically can at the BRs you're talking about. Number 2, adjust base HB so that only large bombers can actually make SL and RP from it. Forcing strike, attack, and fighters have to bomb ground targets. Add the 30-second base respawn to RB and double the number of ground targets. So if one team has big bombers and the other team has no bombers, or has small bombers, you just lose then. Fantastic. At the same time, we talked about this last week, right? I feel like the video was not watched. So the issue with doing something like this is you make all smaller bombers, such as the A-26 that you see going past me right now, completely useless. Because they cannot just go and like ground pound and hit different things. They cannot just do that. You also make all Japanese bombers completely useless, including the large ones, like the G8 and the G5. They do not have large bomb loads, right? Because they're designed for long-distance stuff. So get out of this mentality that you only have to save the B-29 on the TU-4. Because by saving those vehicles, or saving them, or making them meta, you destroy everything else in the way. Right? That's why we have the situation that we have right now. Number 3, make air gunners actually useful. No, definitely not. Because it wouldn't matter anyway, because according to your setup, you wouldn't even be able to kill them anyway. 4, make the bullet spread, not garbage. Just self-explanatory, it's just bad right now. No, we had many periods of time in War Thunder where bombers had laser accuracy when it came to these things, and it was incredibly annoying to face. Not just in realistic, but also in simulator. It was insanely annoying to fight bombers back in the day, right? Which is why, right, I don't know when you started playing the game. Okay, obviously that's something that can't be told by a comment. But as somebody who's been around for many times, all of these things you're bringing up used to be in the game, and there's a reason now why they're no longer in the game. So you are asking to revert to a time which caused these problems, right? Which caused stuff like the B-29 to go up in BR to what it is now. Which caused the limit on bombers to have to exist. In terms of, you know, them being limited the amount that you can bring into matches, right? Like, come on. All of these things were problems in the past, and you are asking to reintroduce them because, I don't know, you think it won't be problematic now. And as a person who's around then, and as a person who's around now, they will be, okay? And once again, it doesn't matter, because you won't be caught by the planes if you decide to put them at such a low BR that you want to do, so it wouldn't matter. For the bombers with CCIP guns, add it, yes, for the B-29 too. Well, once again, it doesn't matter, because you're putting them at BRs where they'll never have to fight anything, because they just outrun them at high altitudes. Make the spawn altitude of bombers be 5 to 6 kilometers. Right, so you just don't want to die. Right? You just don't want to die. Okay, whatever. You just don't want to die. You never want to be shot down. I get it. It's all good. Unfortunately, you need to go back about 5 years in War Thunder's history. And that can happen for you. There's even bombers today where you'll just never die. Like if you just go to the heavens. And even with like the standard like spawn-in statistics that you have now. That you can do that if you want. But these changes would be awful. It'd be absolutely horrific. 7. Drop every single jet bomber in Briar so that they have the equivalent armament and countermeasures as the vehicles they face, but also give them an air spawn. Right, once again, you just don't want to die. I am honestly just don't care about any of this suggestion. This is ridiculous. You are asking basically for the game to revert back 5 years ago, when the B-57 couldn't be killed, when the Votor couldn't be killed when it first came out, when the B-29, the Tu-4 couldn't be killed, when the Me-264, the J-288, the HE-177, the Lincoln, the Lancaster, all of these vehicles had insanely high repair costs, right? Like there's some of them, in Simulator, I think that one of them went over 100,000 SL to repair. Right? Most of them were up 40, 60, 80,000 SL. And it wasn't because you were doing so much score and so many SL in a match. It was because people weren't dying. So because of how the calculation worked, it just kept stacking the rewards on top of each other. And if you died like once in every 5 battles, then technically it would equal out. And people would complain about this all the time. But now we've just done a full 360. We've just done a full 360. It's crazy to me. It's absolutely crazy that all of these suggestions are here. Nuts. But yeah, the question that has to be asked when I look at a suggestion like this is simple. What situation do you feel that it's okay in order for you to get shot down? Like what situation is it all right for the bomber to get annihilated, right? Because the way that you set up all of these points is so the bomber survives every single time in a match. There is no way you can die. So, what do you do? Are you unhappy with the fact that you might be able to die? Are you okay with the fact that you could die, but somebody needs to reach you at 8k alt in like 10 minutes with an engine which is going to be slower than your plane? Like, what are you okay with, right? Hey, Peter the Great, nice to see you, man. Hopefully you're doing alright today. Nice to see you too, Splendid Yum Yum. Hopefully life's good. We're just doing the tech talk first, but yeah. It's one of those fun things. So then we have Rusty Sniper. The way to counter an AEM in the TU4 is to switch your engines off. Then you have no heat signature. You still do. It's a little one, but yeah, that can work. Like it is something that is possible. But yeah, you still have a little heat signature. The other issue is it's, you know, obviously at the end of the day, by doing that, you also have a problem with not being able to have any speed. So yeah, it's always it's a double-edged sword at the end of the day. Nice to see you, Eep. Good morning. Hopefully doing all right. Is the Squadron YH64 worth getting? If you have a bunch of the other Squadron vehicles, yeah, sure. Why not? Like, why not? Have a bit of fun with it. But yeah, I think in general, I understand that people want these very boom or bust vehicles to be boom again instead of bust. I'm not one of those people, so it's just how it is. I remember the dark times, you know? I remember the dark times where people would abuse the living hell out of these vehicles, whether it was in crafting events, whether it was in stuff like just general grinding stuff, or whether it was in just, you know, playing the game normally, where they just wouldn't die. And they would even there were people during the crafting events, because I remember chatting to them, right? What they would do is they would play these games. So they would play in the 264, the J288, stuff like the B29 back in the day. They would play with them during school hours, and they would take off or click to battle. They would bomb a base, and then they would just set it in a 5-degree climb, and then they would just do their schoolwork while they were in school, like on their laptop. And the reason they could do that is because they knew that they would last 25 or 50 minutes like it used to be and get a bunch of the crafting awards while they were in school. Now, the only reason you can do that, right, is because the game was set up wrong. And if you want passivity like that, you can get it, I suppose, in Simulator, but that shouldn't be what we focus on, you know? It's crazy. Hey, Critical Thinking, nice to see you. So then we have Rico Olives, or Rick Olives. I don't know how you say that. Balanced bombers by how they originally were. Back in the day, laser-like accuracy. If anyone played the B-17s and B-24s back when it was just US, Germany, and Russia, then you know, that long ago. No, that would be very idiotic, I think is probably the best way of putting it. Hey, Baghdad Bob, nice to see you. No, that would be very stupid. As a person who was around back then, as well, playing on the other side of it, playing on stuff like Hokkaido, where there wasn't a limit on even how many bombers you could have in a match. You know what would happen? So the British team would take off, right? The British team would take off. The American team would spawn in the air. because their whole team was B-17s or B-24s. They would clatter all of the bases, and they would then destroy the airfield. The game would be over in 4 or 5 minutes. The only time this wouldn't happen is if the American team didn't use their brains and didn't coordinate, right? Did not coordinate which person was going after which base. And then, the funniest thing, also, with the B-17, it had its old flight model. So it could outturn fighters. You know when they changed the B-17, so when it could turn, its wings would fall off? Right? Before then, it could outturn stuff like Tempests. It could outturn a bunch of different vehicles, and it was just a pain to fight against. But it didn't matter anyway, because the match was over in 5 minutes. So no, I don't want to go back to those days. I don't want to go back to full German teams of DO-217s, right? I don't want to go back to full teams of B-17s. I don't want to go back to a full team of Lancasters and all of these ridiculous vehicles. That would be awful. Absolutely awful, man. God damn. I remember being able to take a B-29 and wiping a whole match by yourself. It was way too much. Yeah. I remember on the old Berlin finishing the game in 3 minutes with 2 DO-217s. Hitting the, because there was 3 columns. If you took out 2 of them, the game was just instantly over. You spawn, bang, 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 done. Move on. People used to do it with the Polkish-Storer too. Like, I get that people yearn for the mines, right? I get that people yearn for slavery. It's not a good idea. Because remember it from the other side of things. Please, for the love of God. But yeah, there's a reason why those times changed. And of course, people are going to be not happy with it, because there were some people who benefited from it. But I think it's fair to say we are in a much more positive position. Whoops. We're in the much more positive position now than we were previously. Because previously, only like a very small amount of vehicles could be usable. Whereas nowadays, with the difference in terms of vehicles like around, you can actually do a lot more, which is nice. Makes sense that critical thinking was absent for that comment. Yeah, true. 2 spawns and realistic with enemy plane numbers. Enemy has 1 more spawn. Anyone? What's the worst that could happen? What? But yeah, we are not going back to those days. Those days were horrific. So we have Jerry. You know how during some events, like the April Fool's events, they have special crew voices? If you reach a certain stage of the event, you should get to keep the special crew voice lines. Also, when April Fool's events are done, you should be able to use the maps in custom battles. You can't even play them using user missions, because Gaijin removes the maps from the files. Yeah, it would be nice. Like, I think personally I would enjoy having more of those maps be available. I think it'll be pretty nice to see. In general, I think having more like custom missions around that stuff would be really nice, or just the custom vehicles, right? Yeah, I use mouse and keyboard, Philip. But basically, the special crew voices stuff, I've always liked the idea of them attaching crew voices to things. So now that they have a bunch of like more unique ones, right? I think it's important to attach them to stuff like battle passes or attach them to events themselves, like you've said. I think it would be really cool, especially since the voice lines in that April Fool's event were really fun, right? Like those ones were awesome. The other part of it as well is a lot of those maps do come to the game anyway. Like when you think about like event maps or April Fool's maps, a ton of them have made it in different forms. So for example, the Hitler map, the Middle East map, that obviously is already in the game. That was the original kind of future Thunder or Modern Vehicles Thunder event. Seversk was another map that was one of those. Then there was the testing site map. That was another one that kind of got brought in. So I feel like those types of maps, since they developed them, you know, to a point, I got a feeling that they come in. It just takes a bit of time, right? I don't really want to see that Mad Thunder map, if I'm honest. I don't, that one looks a bit rough, you know. That one could be terrible. But yeah, I think the exploration and more crew voice stuff would be fantastic. I'd be a huge fan of that. I think it would be really good. Let's see. When do you think Israel will get a vehicle that aren't based on the Macabre or the Magak? I mean, there's still some Shermans they can get. But a lot of their vehicles, just like a lot of other countries in the world, have a lot of commonality because it's easier to produce. So, yeah, they made a lot of Macabre chassis and have a lot of Magak chassis. So, I think there are a few AAs that they could get which aren't based on those, and there's a few light vehicles, but mainly that's what you're gonna see. I just wonder if they'll ever change that. If two spawns in RRB, good or bad, and how would you execute it in game? I've liked the idea in RRB to not have multiple spawns, but have a list of vehicles that you can pick from for specific maps. So there is a kind of a fundamental problem in Air Realistic where you line up with a vehicle, right? And then you go to battle, and then you can get on a map which doesn't fit your vehicle at all. Especially if you're playing like a strike aircraft or a light bomber or something like that. There are plenty of maps where you can't really do too much on them. But if you're able, let's say, to pick or bring along like 3 vehicles, and then at the start of the match you could pick to spawn in one of them, then this would alleviate that issue, because you would have kind of a group of them to pick from, which you could then go with. Now, this would cause a few balancing issues. You know, we talked about the issue previously with only being able to bring in X amount of bombers in the game right now as a team, but I think this could be alleviated for those specific maps that have that issue. Or what you could do is you could do the opposite, which is it's basically whoever clicks first, which isn't exactly great, but you know, it's one of those things which would have to think about. I don't like multiple spawns in RRB because the flow of the match wouldn't really need that. By the time one team already has access to the middle of the map and controlling it, it's very, very hard to take it back from them unless they don't know what they're doing. And usually if they're in that position, they already do know what they're doing, so that's not going to work too well. So for me, I think having a setup where you can spawn in, like, for example, imagine if I took this lineup into a match and like one was a fighter, one was a bomber, one was like a strike aircraft, they're all the same BR, then, you know, I could pick which one I wanted on specific maps, right? Do you think the Object 195 or any of the big gun tanks will be added to War Thunder? I have no idea what the Object 195 is, but yeah, of course. Anything's possible as long as it existed. So we have a way with you, Varbega. There we go. Hey TEC, glad you liked the suggestions and points out the big reason Gaijin would never add anything close to real terraforming, so to speak. Yeah, probably nuke people's PCs too. The 195 is the precursor to the Armata. I thought that was the Black Eagle. Also, having red faction levels of destruction would break many PCs or create the mother of all lags. Yeah, just imagine someone dropping one of the big bombs in the middle of a town city with the meme realistic changes. Yeah, people, like, it would just break PCs. Like, it would be crazy. But I really enjoyed Red Faction Guerrilla. The remastered edition was really fun. I enjoyed that one too. I actually played through all of the Red Factions. I don't know what they were doing with the last game. I suppose they wanted to try and change it up or something. What I'd like to see if they can make it work is something along the lines of have scripted events that would affect certain positions on the map to change the map flow a bit. By the way, these events should only affect the middle of the map and be paired with recognizable visual auditory effects where both teams would be affected, since I don't like it when one team gets shafted by RNG. So like Levolution, you know? F-18, are we going to see it soon? Yeah, in the next few years. The Levolution is a funny thing. I also really enjoyed the general stuff in what's it called? What's the game? Split Second. Split Second was really fun. It was a racing game, but it was one of the first ones to do the whole, hey, you're trying to do this for social media clout. And yeah, if you win a race, wow, you have so many followers, dude. But one of the cool things about it is most of the races were circuit races, and you could trigger specific things to happen on the circuit race, and then the next lap it would still be there. So you could alter the way that the track was as you went around, and I think that was really cool. In War Thunder, if you could do little stuff like that, that'd be kind of fun. You kind of can on some maps, you know, obviously destroy some walls and, you know, do little things like that. But yeah, imagine just like a random plane like crashing in the middle or something. That could be a bit fun. Why not? That's what we're here for, right? A bit of jiggity, bit of enjoyment. So yeah, I mean, why not? Why not throw in a bit something like that? Yeah, just let me sort this out. Don't like this map because in order to hit the ground targets, you have to go way too close to the enemy. By the time you get here, you already have like 3 or 4 people on you, so it doesn't go very well. For example, these are the ones off the top of my head. One of the points that's always open explodes and now gets some cover. Crumbling building / big crater. Or you here see a similar boom and get another path to exploit in the middle. Big hole, big building. An in-game example of Flanders map, but instead of the visual change based on tiers, it's match to match kind of change. Yeah, that could work. Nonetheless, changes like this would come very far into the future, since we have other mechanics we have to polish. There's always room for a bit of polish, isn't there? Oh, God. P.S. Although I'm glad to hear people enjoyed Bethesda's Fallout show, I personally say that this show... this show is a disgrace for old Fallout fans. Yeah, I'd agree with that. If you're into the early stuff, yeah, this is very much Bethesda's show, right? Like that's, oh dear, that's definitely something to put on. Sadly, it's what we learned to expect from Bethesda, since they don't care about their own lore anymore, because they make stupid shit up for the funny memes, even if it makes no sense. Then they start arguing with people like me who played the game since the very beginning because we call them out on their BS. Yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks because, so right, this has been a problem, especially in TV, with the way that TV intersects with video games, and it's been like this for way too long, and it's incredibly annoying. There's this like, so the TV people want to make their own show. That's fine. Nobody has an issue with that. Everybody's okay with this, right? Like, it's not a problem. The problem comes when the TV show decides that it wants to create its own thing, but it also still wants to try and keep that old player base happy, so therefore they try and link the new stuff that they've done to the old stuff. But because they want their own spin on the new stuff, they ham-fist it into the old stuff. This is what the Halo show tried to do. This Fallout obviously did it. Rings of Power even, right? Like, you know, it's obviously something where they're trying to go, okay, we like these ideas. It's time to ram them in. And that's fine if you want to do that. But the issue is when they turn around and they go, well, we're trying to be respectful to the law. No, you're not. Just, you don't have to say that. Because there's plenty of producers and plenty of directors who go, yeah, I mean the standard law is nice, but I wanna try my own thing. And people get annoyed when they say that, but at least they're being honest about it. The other people are not being honest at all, right? Because instead what they're doing is the opposite, right? They're just lying to your face about what they're trying to do. So at least I have a bit of respect for that. Now, in terms of Fallout, right? This is, as you said, it's very much a Bethesda Fallout TV show, but it was never going to be anything different. Because if you have a look at the way that people see Fallout nowadays, it is Bethesda, right? They're going for that audience. They're not going for the earlier audience from the earlier games. Or they're, and they're trying to still make some homages to specific stuff, with obviously Fallout 76 and things like that. But yeah, it's just how it goes. And at least for me, the way that I see it is, even though it isn't respectful to the original lore, at least it's a little bit closer to what people remember in terms of stuff like Fallout 3, Fallout 4, 76, which is what it's mostly based on. And also, at least it's fun to watch. Because a lot of those video game movies slash TV shows are dull as dishwater and also are disrespectful to the lore as well, right? Like the first season of Rings of Power is one of those where it's like, okay, you're trying to set up a bunch of things, you're trying to do a bunch of different stuff. Okay, I get it. We'll see how it goes. But it still was pretty boring to watch. There was a lot of scenes where it's like, hey, we spent a ton of money setting up this scene, and look how cool everything looks. And then the dialogue is like, hello, hello, how are you? I'm good. I need to go do this. Okay, you need to come help me. No, I don't want to. And it's like, okay, so it reminds me of like the earlier Star Wars movies, like episode 1 and 2 and 3, where a lot of it is, okay, you're in like a green screened room, you're walking down a pathway and you're talking about this random thing, right? And it isn't very enjoyable. So I'd rather have the opposite, where it's at least fun to watch, even if it is, disrespectful, which is what the Fallout show was, which to me is more fun. But yeah, I do get the gripes, especially somebody played, the earlier games. Maybe the thing with Fallout though, and the way that the universe works, they could straight up do whatever they wanted to Fallout, because it's such like an expanding world, and it's so easy to make a story, and it's like trying to make a story in like Elder Scrolls. You don't, like, if you're a TV producer, that's basically your wet dream, right? You can just kind of do whatever you want with it and make stuff up. And will people be happy? No. But you're not trying to go for that audience. You're trying to go for the TV audience. Yeah. But we'll see what goes on in the future with that stuff. Like, they've obviously confirmed it for some more seasons. It was a big success. I think it's going to take a long time for stuff to come out. Another one which is kind of similar to that in my way that I think is Squid Game. Squid Game! Because Squid Game itself was really good for one season. And I feel like it was a complete story for that season, even though the ending, ended on the, oh, we're going to get them, yada, yada, yada. But I feel like as a contained product, it worked really well. But now we're seeing it expanded into a bunch of different seasons. So, yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that goes. Hopefully, it's not awful, but I'm worried. It might just turn into one of those gore porn things, unfortunately. So we have Jace Hickling. People only play bombers because it's the easiest way to grind RP. Dive, base, bomb, die, repeat. They need to increase RP for fighters or something. Some people will always prefer easy, repeatable, and boring over inconsistent. Geo288 is the most prevalent example of the bomber grinders. Yeah, people do use bombers to grind because it's pretty easy to do. That's true. But there are people who do play it just because they enjoy it, right? At the end of the day. Like, it's one of those vehicles, or one of those sets of vehicles, I should say, which, does have a decent following to it. But yeah, there is definitely people who just want them easier to play because it means that it's easy to grind through the tech tree. That's very, very true. So yeah, I feel like in general, I don't think bombers are in a horrific place right now. There, as usual, there are edge cases which are in horrific places, but that's kind of the same with everything. And there's not really a way of being able to fix that. So, don't know. I'm not too bothered with how bombers are right now. They're always a hot topic just because of, as I said, edge cases and people wanting to have their favorite vehicles that they remember in very good places. But c'est la vie. It's the reason why people just use the F4S all the time. And we have Thunderspring. Hey, see? Hope it's going well. Yeah, life's good. You know, I've been playing a lot of Forza and War Thunder and a few other things. Diplomacy is not an option, which is like a new kind of like city builder that just came out. And it's been really fun to play. Like, it's been an enjoyable experience. Tough, though. Especially since it's one of those games that's gone a little bit crazy with the amount of forces all over the place. I don't know if it's me getting old or if games are just getting to a point where they can process way more stuff on the screen, so people are taking advantage of that now. But that game, like, you're literally destroying thousands of people on maps and just doing so much, even on like the medium difficulty. I always feel like I'm actually gonna kind of, you know, just lose out by doing it. So I don't know. It's a really fun game, but yeah, it's one of those which needs a lot of concentration, and I get tired while playing it, which is a bit weird. The problem is also the directors and writers tend to try and make established franchises their own. Instead of appreciating the art and bringing the book to the screen, they try and change it. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that is a problem. But as I said, I'm kind of fine with them doing that as long as they're honest about it. You know what I mean? Like I am completely fine with them changing the lore of something as long as they own up and go, we're changing it, we want to make it our own. The problem is the writers, and a lot, like Todd Howard does this all the time. Like, and he's, you know, obviously the creative lead. He goes, yeah, we have this established product and we're trying to be fair to it, but then also, you know, we're adding our own spin. And it's like, just say you're trying to make it your own. Like, it's fine to say that. Especially if, you know, you're technically lying about it, right? You kind of want to watch bro play Forza? I mean, I play Forza while working out, so it's kind of like my chill game. I've been doing a lot of the Lego Horizon stuff, and I'm basically on the alien spaceship to create now, which I think means you have to complete like every single block challenge, which is just nuts. So I'm trying to do that, but at the same time, there's a bunch of the block challenges where it's like, hey, you need to use this specific vehicle to do this specific thing, or one of them where it's like, hey, so in autumn when it rains, this specific plant turns up and you need to hit it, and it's like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean there's just like a plant that I have to hit? And then when it's not raining, the plants just disappear. And it's like, okay, well, how do I control the bloody weather? How do I make it so it rains all the time so I can find these flipping plants? And I have to wait until it's the autumn season to do it as well. Are you nuts? But yeah, so that's I'm at that stage of like the Lego Horizons expansion where it's turning into trying to hunt for like all the little blocks to be able to create everything, and it's getting a little bit annoying. Instead of just doing like the races and like the, you know, finding the roads and doing the simple stuff, it's like smash 7 ladders. So I have to go find 7 bloody ladders to smash in different places. So yeah. Anyway, first off, I want to say I agree with the nerfs. Nothing was more annoying than all the A5s and Exos Drakens coming in and wiping out all the bases with rockets, making some attackers and bombers completely redundant. Yeah, I agree. And I wish that Gaijin wouldn't blame the tornado for it and would actually blame the actual problems. I'm only annoyed that the nerf took so long to implement, as it would have made my life a lot easier. Something that could potentially work with a PvE mode just for bombers, is it could be done like the single PvE missions, but they're random. Destroy the battleship, destroy the train, destroy the scuds. If you ever played Armored Core, think about how those missions would be thrown at you. Yeah, that could be fun. Like, that would be quite nice. Hey, Red Warning, nice to see you. I think in general, stuff like that could be pretty fun. I would want a lot of development into those single player missions though, because a lot of them do not have, like, a lot of them are 10 years old and they're in really rough places. It's pretty much as simple as that. They're not in good places in terms of how it works. So yeah. Hey, Black Ivy, nice to see you. So yeah, I think overall that could be cool. And just kind of expanding on that idea would be really nice to see too. The nerf stuff, the only issue I have with the nerf stuff, right, is kind of the sequence of events that they did it in. So number one, they did the sales, right? And they knew that a lot of people would buy the J35, would buy the A5, would buy the F4. And then a week later, they bumped them up in BR aggressively because of the fact that a lot of them are getting a lot of score from hitting bases and then being able to do the dogfighting thing. And then after that, they hit them hard with the nerf to, like, what they're able to do on the battlefield. Now, people will still play them in the same way, but they're going to get less score, and they're also now at harsher BRs, which will affect them more aggressively, right? So it basically means that they kind of double hammered them straight after selling them to a bunch of people. And that is the bit I'm not too happy with. Also the fact that they didn't bring in the other changes either. So they haven't brought in the proper job changes that they were going to do to actually try and, like, fix this system. This was just kind of the bug fix stuff, right? I think in general they should have done it all at once, so therefore we could get a full picture of what's going on instead of what we have now. And also, as I said, just being honest about it. You know, just say exactly why they did it. You know, stop blaming the tornado. We all know it's not the tornado, all right? It's not the tornado doing these things. You can say that the premium vehicles are causing an issue because you have laden them with too much ordnance. That's okay. You know, I think people can take the truth nowadays. Maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe I'm wrong. Some people are pretty nuts. Like, we watched a podcast yesterday while playing Naval, and this podcast was from Big Lee. It's Big Lee, our boy in Sheffield. And he yesterday went through a bunch of, like, political talking points and who you should vote for based on them. He straight up listened to all of the talking points and got and understood them completely the wrong way around. Every single one, to a point where he thought that private trains becoming public trains and transport, right, in England, he thought that meant that people in the public would just freely volunteer to work on them. Not that being a public need would mean run by the government. He literally just thought that people would go and run them. And he was fine with that if people wanted to do the work, right? So sometimes that's the caliber of person you're dealing with. And it's pretty rough. So it's just how it is. So maybe you do have to sometimes do lowest common denominator. Hey, Black Ivy, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. Based on your knowledge and time into the game, has Gaijin ever asked your opinion on something or used an idea you suggested? Yes and yes, basically. Yeah, they, every so often, especially with, like, new mechanics and stuff like that, they'll put out, like, a broad release to, like, CCs or also other people about, like, hey, you know, we're testing this new thing. Do you want to have a look at it? You know, let us know your feedback, kind of thing. So they do that quite a lot. When it, especially with new mechanics. Individually, yes, they have. I don't want to go into that too much, because obviously that's more like private conversations about things, so yeah. But basically, yes. There is also developers who do watch the videos, which is interesting to think about, and all that stuff, so yeah. Oh god, come on. Get to it. Oh, just got to it. Nice. Just played a game of top tier US, decent 4 kills in the HSDVL, got into the AVAB, but magic, my team's gone. Yeah, it happens, unfortunately. Hey, Zeramace, nice to see you. Happy Friday, brother. Hopefully you're doing good. Hopefully life is okay. So we have last Red Star. Hey, TEC. Hope this week's been well. It has. Been good. I've tried Bannerlord 2 and was immediately confused. I skipped the tutorial. The game... The game looks fun. I'll have to try it some more. Bannerlord is really fun, but I do agree with you. There's a lot going on, and it's very hard to kind of follow. The only reason for me I know Bannerlord decently well is because of the fact that I've played, you know, I've played the earlier Mount and Blade, so I kind of know the general way to go about them. But yeah, even the tutorial in Bannerlord really doesn't help you that much. It tells you the very basics of like combat and also like strategy of using your troops. Doesn't tell you anything about like your skills, or doesn't tell you anything about like how you need to set everything up. So yeah, it can be a little bit rough to play. But it's a fantastic game. Like easily one which is very hard to replicate. With everyone talking about the B-52 and how cool it'll be in game, I would also like to see it in the game one day. But I mostly want to see it in the game because my grandfather served on one of them in Vietnam. He was among one of the 3 B-52s to reach Vietnam first. I don't know his role, but I know he wasn't a pilot, bombardier, or gunner. I assume it's something with technical work. But since 2019, his health has declined. He was hospitalized last year and has shown signs of early Alzheimer's. I'd love the B-52 to be added one day and show him the aircraft he served on. I'm down for Gaijin nerfing the bomb load if it means it can be added, but I know there's more to it than that. Yeah, it would be... For stories like that, it would obviously be fantastic to see the vehicle in game, right? Because people could kind of, you know, tell their stories about what used to happen, or tell stories about how it all used to come together. And those are always the stories which are fun to hear about. I remember, I think it was Gaijin, or it might have been a different company. They set up one of the kind of the 3D big flight sim things, so you could like move around in the seat as you were like flying the aircraft. And they got a bunch of like people who were, you know, veterans to kind of like sit in it and give it a go and go around in it. And they had a lot of like thoughts about like how it went, and you know, they kind of talked about a bunch of different stories, which was really cool. There was a series, or is a series technically, that Gaijin does over the years, which I think is really cool, where they get people who've had experience in combat or in militaries, and kind of like ask them, you know, their general feelings on a vehicle, or ask them Q&A stuff, and kind of do like a little bio for them, because I think it's important to understand that in War Thunder, you know, there are a lot of people who, you know, do military stuff, or are currently in military stuff, or used to be in military stuff, and they all, you know, kind of play the game together. It's pretty interesting to think about, actually. Like, it's one of those things that I think is really cool to see, but it does kind of lead to other things which can be a bit negative, but overall I think it's a positive. Yeah, sometimes it can lead to people constantly complaining about the state of certain vehicles that they served on, and how, you know, how they're not how they were realistically, and all these things. But yeah, I think for stories like that, it would be lovely to see all the different vehicles in the game, and also attach them to these historical areas, right? Like, there's no reason why people couldn't be represented even individually in games, in terms of, you know, what they do and who they are. That to me is always fun and interesting. This vehicle once again proving it is not a 5.7. Then we have Flyboy Joe. I think if the large bombers are added, then they should be limited to air sim only. Air sim's the best current mode for bombers, giving the most rewards and the most advantages. Air sim can have a reworking of BR from RRB. Well, the reason it's the best for those is because you don't get intercepted that much, because you can just, right, I'm not going to talk about Sim. It annoys me because of how Sim is set up, and it's such an exploitable game mode and ridiculous how it's set up. But every time I talk about it, I get a bunch of people annoyed at me, so I'm just not going to bother this time. Like, I'm not interested in dealing with like it. But Simulator, as it's set up, the only reason it's so advantageous for stuff like that is because you can just create your own rooms. So you can negate the fighter threats, or you can negate any of the threats that you see before you, so... That's not how any game should be like. Right, so then we have Volta Point. One way to possibly balance bombers would be to add a respawn mechanic, provided an aircraft is close enough to the airfield and the crew has a chance for survival. Damage not deadly. Example, soft landing achievement. I think that planes should get up to 3 respawns. Matches should be extended, and heavy bombers and light bombers should be classified differently and cost different spawn points like in Ground Abbey. You could do all of these things, or you could just keep the standard system that exists, which works for 99% of vehicles. But yeah, you could. Like, if you really are bothered about that 1%, and, you know, trying to make them fit in with the other 99%, you could probably do that. For me, I don't feel as passionately about it, and then the problem with doing stuff like this is what ends up happening is you affect a bunch of other vehicles in the same way. So if you're bringing in a respawn mechanic for these guys, you're also bringing in a respawn mechanic for everybody else. So that means that instead of you fighting 1 fighter, you're now fighting 3 fighters. Instead of, you know, fighting 1 attacker, which can, you know, get 20 ground kills very quickly, you're now fighting 3, which can, you know, get 60 ground kills very quickly. So it's just one of those which doesn't really work as well in practice as people think. Arcade already has this issue. Like, for example, you can bring just like a whole lineup of bombers and just keep trying to hammer the enemy in the face over and over and over again, and eventually you'll break through. Like, eventually you'll do a ton of damage, and that'll be pretty bad for the enemy. And, you know, you just have to try it over and over and over again until it happens. And that's just how it goes. Works every time. You know, we demonstrated it even in this video, playing stuff like the American bombers we were just using. You know, you only need to get 1 or 2 through, and then it cripples the enemy. Could you do a test of the 10-7 GR1A or the MF or the 4C? I've been grinding the GR1A stock lately, and it's an absolute pain. I can't win matches, I can barely get kills. We played the GR1A a little bit ago. Like maybe a week or 2 ago, we spaded it. It wasn't too bad. Just need to play a little bit standoffish. It's easily the best way to play it. You don't play it standoffish, you're gonna get absolutely creamed by things, so yeah. I did a video on the GR1A, maybe like a week or 2 or 3 ago. You could probably search for it in the Balanced Unbalanced series. After BRD compression, it gets absolutely hammered, constant up-tiered. I mean, for me, it was getting up-tiered anyway, like when I was playing it. But no, I don't think doing tests where I just get hammered in the face is a good idea. If that's the case, not too interested in that. As for Battle Pass vehicles, I like the idea of bringing back previous Battle Pass vehicles, but also they should make it a 4-vehicle Battle Pass again. So they 2 recycle vehicles and 2 new vehicles. Also recycle the decals and a decal chest and a decorator and a decorator chest. Keep new decals and decorators, but also add previous decals and decorators instead of universal backups. Gaijin needs to make money, but they also need to give the players a Battle Pass that they're wanting to spend money on. Yeah, and I mean, the simple way that this works, right, is, as you said, it's about how much money they can make from an inferior product. If they find that this Battle Pass doesn't sell as well as the previous ones, then they'll make changes in order to get people to buy it. But right now, they don't think that's the case. So we'll have to see what happens. Like there's no other way of people being able to kind of teach Gaijin or change what Gaijin wants to do. The only way you can do it is if less people purchase the battle pass. So we'll have to see if that happens or not. There might be a setup where, you know, that happens, and it'll be very positive and very nice to see. But at the moment, I mean, as I said, we'll just have to see. There's no way for us to know how many people buy the battle pass or how many people engage in it. The only way we can see that is the changes that they make to the battle pass. If they add more value to it, therefore they feel like people aren't purchasing it enough and they want more people into it, so therefore they have to increase its value. If they feel like not enough people are getting involved in it, then therefore, if too many people are getting involved in it or they're miles over where they need it to be, then they'll reduce it, right? Like it's pretty much as simple as that. The only reason you fully reduce it after that is if you feel like it's a lost cause, or if you want to kind of dampen it down compared to other processes you're bringing into the game. And since there isn't really anything that we've seen which is anything like that, I highly doubt that's going to happen. So yeah, so that's what we call a time will tell kind of thing. We'll see after the next few battle passes what they intend to do. It seems like they've put a lot of thought into the structure though, because, you know, they've talked about how they want to use it for future battle passes. So maybe that won't be well, we'll just have to see. Then we have, as for sell loot boxes, I think me spilling the beans on how to win is why they aren't back yet. Gaijin might be reworking them so the drop chances are lower. I don't think that's the case. You have to remember the mentality that is the most crucifying to an individual is, I suppose, what I'd class as main character syndrome. And this has happened a lot in War Thunder's history, where individual people feel like they are the reason why stuff gets changed because they crack the code. Like, for example, the Italian F-86. This was a Sabre that was, if you have a look at its statistics, was worse than the other Sabres, right? But it was going up in BR. But the other Sabres weren't going up in BR. So there was a bunch of people who celebrated that, ooh, look, because there was like, I think 4 people or like 5 or 6 people which decided that they were just going to play it a lot. And the vehicle was going up in BR because of the fact that they played it a lot and they did well in it. So once again, main character syndrome, right? But this wasn't the case, because with that amount of people playing it, even if you're playing it night and day and night and day and night and day, it still is like a blimp on all of the stats that were collected on that vehicle over the span of when they were looking at it, right? Like, it's tiny. But they convinced a bunch of the community that they were the reason why the thing was going up. And you know what was hilarious? At the end of when they did all the battle rating changes and everything like that, they first of all confirmed that it wasn't them, and then second of all, they raised all the Sabres anyway. So all the Sabres got put up to be the same BR, not just the Italian one, funnily enough. And that was because they were all equal enough to be at the same BR, even though one or a few were slightly worse. So what they even said, or what they even claimed, didn't happen. So simple as. Like, it was just how it is. Like, I don't know. It completely shot it in the foot. So if you ever feel like you are the reason why something like gets changed or something gets recalibrated, I mean, you got to remember, millions of people play War Thunder. the chance of that happening, or the chance that only you are the one who's like done something or seen something or spread something, is probably not huge, you know. The other part of it as well is the reason they haven't brought loot boxes back is because they tailor them to major events. So you get the winter loot box, you get the summer loot box, and then you sometimes get loot boxes in the middle that follow the crafting events that used to be. So there was no reason to put in loot boxes because it wasn't going to go along with the summer event. And then also at the same time, if the issue is they need to change some percentages, that is literally like a this move, right? You can just change it right like that. That's the easiest thing to do with these things. And then, on top of that, they've just announced that they're doing a new loot box for the summer event. So, because it's the same time as the summer event, it's happening. So yeah. There's a bunch of other ideas. But maybe it is the main character. Evening, Silver Serpent, nice to see you. Given the Jag test now, its 0.3 increase should have been a buff, no? Technically, but it's... Right, so because they haven't moved anything from 9.0 to 10.0, that bracket of 10.0 to 11.0 is kind of a bit all over the place right now. So it doesn't face a lot of the vehicles it used to annihilate previously, but also at the same time, it didn't get put up by 2 BR brackets, which was the standard that most things went up. So it technically got buffed and nerfed, so that's why it's going to be in a bit of a weird place going forward. But yeah, if you have a look at the F14 event, they've talked about how for some of the prizes they mention like a treasure chest, which can only be a loot box. So that's obviously the thing that's coming in, which matches up because it's the summer event and that's what they do. So they do it every time. Maybe this year will be different, but I highly doubt it. Since they now are rolling on people being addicted to these things. No, sorry, Midnight. I saw your comment earlier, but I didn't respond to it. They added it like a few weeks ago. So those like the pods on the AJ, the pods on the Tornado, and also the pods on the Harriers now have more chaff. So they added a ton of chaff to them. That's basically what's there. So then we have good soup. Make fighters need at least 4 or 5 kills to spawn and make bombers easier to spawn. Is that less effective in most circumstances? You mean in like ground forces? I mean, sure, why not? I think we just need some redesignations of vehicles and their power levels. Is a fighter the same as a fighter with access to bombs? You know? The biggest issue is the SP costs of these things. Just increase them in general. You don't have to balance through that. Just increase them and then go from there. There was a clip of a guy playing top tier the other day. He spawned in the BM-21 Grad at the start of a match. He fired off the rockets, got lucky, got a kill, and instantly was able to spawn in a fully maxed out, I think it was like a MiG-27 with the KH-29s and then also the bombs. And they ended up getting like 8 or 10 kills because obviously people don't spawn in AA first, so there was no counter to it. It was kind of crazy to watch, but also at the same time, that's something that happens a lot because the balance in War Thunder is more of an issue of, you know, certain teams not having a counter to what comes out. And it's sometimes just luck based on whether you're able to do that or not. So yeah, kind of sucks. But yeah, I've talked about it for many years. I feel like now I would like to see increases in terms of SP costs for a lot of vehicles. I think a lot of them are in positions which make them incredibly powerful. Gonna have to play a bit more ground and see how it goes around. So we have C76 Caravan. Hi, TEC. Are you also reading the comments people leave under the main comment? No, I don't. No, because I feel like the comment itself is more obviously for the tech talk, and then the replies to that comment are people talking about that comment, which is fine, but that's not like kind of the aim of the tech talk. Instead, it's more talking about the comment itself, so that's the general idea of it, right? Hey, Trepper Pen, nice to see you. We're doing the tech talk. So no, I don't look at the replies, just because it's additional stuff on top of it, and yeah, we'd be here forever, just like going through a bunch of things. Then we have on the TU-160, mostly it's as an equal, if not superior. A bit dependent on time frame and upgrades, of course, to the B1B. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that would be slightly rough to have in the game. I don't know how I feel about that one. But yeah, in general, you know, those types of things would be very hard to balance. It wouldn't be very fun. So we'd have to see how they would go in the future. I'm sure they'll get added. It's just how they get added. It's one of those areas that they have to actually to move around with. So we have typical Raptor. With the naval crate instead of a boat on the battle pass. Do you think we'll get to a point where all 3 vehicle rewards are similar crates? Also possibly at some point adding vehicles from events other than the battle pass? I think it's more likely they just do a rotation. So instead of having, they'll have like 1 vehicle of each of them, which will be a crate. So 1 battle pass it'll be a ground vehicle, next battle pass it'll be an air vehicle, next battle pass it'll be a naval vehicle. The reason why they did the naval vehicle first was obviously it wouldn't cause as much of a ruckus, so therefore they could work out how much value people actually want out of it compared to, you know, what they don't. So in general, I think that's what they do. I don't think they'll I don't think they do the opposite, which is make them all like that. If they ever did that, that would be pretty bad for people, I think. I don't think that would work very well. Like I think you would see a ton of people just drop the battle pass, because one of the most important things about the battle pass, like we talked about it in 2 ways, right? So the battle pass is there to keep people playing. Okay? So it's one of those kind of like end game things to keep people interested in playing War Thunder. That's one of the whole points of the battle pass. If you make it so the rewards in the battle pass are just things that people have already got in the past who are veteran players, it don't matter, because they're just not going to play it, right? So the whole point of the battle pass is to keep people who have played for a long time continue playing, just the same as events and things like that. That's how they're set up. The other side, of course, is also money as well, but that is, you know, part of it. It's more about giving people something to focus on and to push forward with. And you know, that works pretty well at the moment. But if you made it so all of the rewards in the battle pass were just things that those old players already got, obviously they're not going to be bothered with it. So why would they care? So yeah, I think if they want to lower the value of the battle pass but also keep the whole, you know, people playing it thing, then that's what they would have to do. And I think that's what they will do. They'll just rotate it if they want to put in less rewards. They could make the system super cool, you know, as we talked about with the workshop stuff, and also, you know, adding some coupon stuff in. But yeah, we'll have to see what they do with it. For the strategic bombers, an ideal world would be nice to see them as just nuke planes and ground at appropriate BRs to add a bit of uniqueness. Yeah, I mean that is one of the ways it could work if you want to actually like see them properly in the game. Like I agree with that. That's an idea I've always liked. Though I understand this is a 0 to none chance because it just won't be worth it for Gaijin. I would love to see them in the game as technical tree vehicles, but I can't see it happening without it dragging a cataclysm along with it. Well, this is what I would do, okay? I'd make them the nuke vehicles, but also I would say to players, look, you have to understand that these vehicles don't really work in the normal matchmaker for now, right? So you make sure to add the for now. Then what you do is say, okay, we want to add them in the game. We have made the models. We really like them. You know, we hope you like them too. If you are interested in playing them, you can purchase them for this small amount of money, and you can use them in stuff like single missions and dynamic campaigns, and you create a campaign around them, which is the area that you sell for money. And then you say that you can use them in custom games too, in the test drive, and in all of these things. So you just can't use them in standard matchmaking. And then during this time, you can gather information about how they work in those areas, and maybe start thinking about if the monetary incentive is there. So if enough people actually put their money towards this, to actually start trying to work out how to implement different versions of them into the standard game. That's how I would do it, right? That's how I would do all of these wonky vehicles that people have talked about. You add them as kind of like a special edition, as like either kill streaks in arcade, or nuke bombers, or things you can bring out in custom battles, or specific one-off events where you can see them. And then from there, you make it so you have like a little kind of DLC, kind of like you used to have the old Pacific campaigns, where they would unlock a bunch of missions for you. You could relive some historic moments, and from there you can see how interested people actually are in actually buying these things. Because even though there's a lot of people who talk about they would be fine with them being in the game and stuff like that, you then have to work out the percentage of those people who are willing to pay for it, right? And if they do like a one-off vehicle, if they make a loss on it, okay, they can find other ways of monetizing it in the future, but at least they could see how interested people would be in it, right? Just as kind of like a throw the dart at the dartboard. Let's see what goes on. If we lose on it, that's okay. If we don't, though, this opens up a world of opportunities, right? World of opportunities. And sometimes you have to take risks, but they're calculated, right? You don't just like make everything and go crazy with it. So yeah, because the cost of building a vehicle like that, the cost of being able to fully implement its proper loadouts, the cost of doing the cockpits, doing camos for it, all of this stuff is going to be much more than your standard vehicle, because these vehicles are huge. So yeah, and also just talking about like the licensing and the rights and stuff like that, that's also a different conversation, which we don't usually talk about too much, but that's also a thing that they may have issues with. On World of Tanks versus War Thunder, World of Tanks console is very good compared to the PC version. They give a free tier A premium event every few weeks. I still much prefer War Thunder, but it's better. It's the better of the two World of Tanks experiences. The mobile version is also quite fun. Yeah, I think World of Tanks does the arcade side of things incredibly well, right? Like that, and that's the one thing I've always kind of enjoyed about World of Tanks is the idea of being able to trade health for strategy, or health for tactical like setup. If you know that you can like take a hit and then hopefully you don't get ammo racked, but if you know you can tank a hit and then use that to push forward and then use that to get an advantage, that's huge, right? In War Thunder you can't do that, because if you do that you just get blown up. So it makes it a little bit harder to move around. And with stuff like the mobile version and also the console version, they're a little bit more wacky. They're a little bit faster, right, than the standard World of Tanks version, which I feel like, kind of exemplifies that point. That's the thing that game has always done very well. I just wish that there were certain areas of it which were a lot different in terms of their monetization strategies, and also just the way that, their general event structure works. But c'est la vie. It be how it is. So then we have some ordinary janitor, Grandpa Buff for War Thunder. Have you ever seen those pictures of like the crazy jacked like 60, 70-year-old dudes who are like hyped up on like steroids and hyped up on a bunch of PEDs and things? God, they look crazy. They must have super strong hearts, because people blasting that type of gear usually conk out by the time they're like 40. But I suppose some people, they're just, you know, they just keep on going. Hey, Bolo Gaming, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. Hopefully life's alright. But yeah, there is a lot of granddaddies that play War Thunder, which is quite cool to see. Huge age range when it comes to War Thunder. I've met grannies, I've met granddads, I've met husbands, you know, sons, you know, fathers, mothers, pretty much every part of the spectrum. I think I've met while playing War Thunder or being involved in the community, which is pretty cool. Like it's good to have a wide net, you know, pretty nice. Not too shabby. So then we have Stickman. Why don't they introduce a game mode like IL2 over a large continuously updated map with all the different vehicles incorporated, but with War Thunder realistic gameplay or even Helldivers style overall map progression, a war map? Isn't that what everyone wants? No, not everybody. But I mean, I made a video earlier in the week about the idea of having a progressive world map, but not as a PvP setup. Instead, being set up as a kind of an individual achievement board where you can grind stuff out of it. I've always liked the idea of, let's say you have like France, right? And you play France, and there's like a front line World War I style line on it, and each area, each town, each city you get to, you have a look and there's a different challenge to be able to be completed. And then when you complete that challenge, you have liberated that town. And then you move on to the next one. And then you move on to the next one. And then eventually you see the line gradually move across France. And then it gets to the end and you complete it. And maybe you get like a camo for a vehicle or something. Not even anything too crazy. But it's that general idea of constant progression. Just like stuff like the medals and other things, but in a more visually appealing way. You already have a metric ton of challenges in the game that you could even link to it if you wanted to. It really wouldn't be too hard to sort out. Yeah, I mean, TU2 is pretty fun. It's a nice vehicle to play. My business partner is a grandpa now, and he still plays on and off. We play with one of his kids too. Yeah, it's nuts, isn't it? It's crazy. But yeah, like you could easily do something like that. This idea of like a huge continuously updated map and all of that stuff, it sounds great. There has not been a single game in history that has done it to a level where I'm happy with, right? Yeah, something like that, Sarge Moon, you could do that. So people always bring up PlanetSide or World War II Online or even like Battlefield to a smaller extent with their with their different modes. It's never been in a situation where I would say it's in a good position, because first of all, people cheese it quite aggressively, and also things become stagnant. Even Foxhole, right? Like Foxhole, the maps get stagnant very quickly, where people just take over certain areas and then it just becomes like a big front line, and then you just kind of sit there. So for me, I generally think that it would be better if they did different stuff. So as I said, just a general progressive map. It's also, once again, the big issue, right, with having a continuously changing, updated map all the time that runs 24/7 for people. Number one, people abuse the mechanics. Number two, people find ways of being able to choose it as possible. Number three, the other people get bored because they can't play all the time and they don't feel a connection to it because it's continuously changing. They don't have like a base which they can, you know, continuously go. And then number four, servers. Like, why do people not think these types of things get built a lot? Like, why? Once again, like, it's another idea where it's like, hey, why has nobody thought of this before? Why has nobody tried this in different games? Why? It makes no sense. It's a humdinger. It's a winner. You know, all that stuff. It's because it's hard to bloody do, and it's hard to actually work from a technical standpoint. from a gameplay standpoint, you can talk about how you want to play it all day and all around the place, and that's fantastic, you know? It's always nice to have these ideas, and it's always nice to, you know, pontificate about them. But at the end of the day, you have to build them. You have to make them work. And you can't with how servers work nowadays, and you can't with how internet connections work nowadays. That's why they don't happen. They all happen on a much smaller scale that people try and think about. And that's the issue. The infrastructure that you need, and also you need it to work on a bunch of people's different machines. You need it to work on, you know, you need to work on a bunch of different systems, and you need to also like actually make it work inside of the engine itself. And that's not easy to do, right? That's one of the biggest stumbling blocks of doing stuff like this. And also at the same time, you have to also do it alongside developing everything else, because that's what people are also enjoying. So you need a team dedicated to doing that while also doing all the other stuff too. It's super hard, man. Super hard. Which is why you never see game devs doing it. Because it's a hell of a chance. It's crazy. Whatever happened to moving spawn caps tests we did? I was gone for a bit. I don't know. I don't know what happened to them. I don't even remember them, if I'm honest. You end up with the SC mess? Yeah, so that's the major problem with that stuff. It isn't why can't they do that? It's how do they do it? You know, that's the big question, and that's the hard one. How do you build it? And luckily, we have quite a lot of mechanisms to try and work that out in War Thunder. In terms of, you know, playing with the asset, well, not the asset viewer, but the CDK and a bunch of other things. I think they even updated it recently. So then we have Maxwell. Let's see. Hello, TEC 6770, Russia and USA news. For Russia, nothing much. The tanks are doing well. I don't really see why the Object 276A is at 7.0 and not lower, because its armor is inconsistent, but okay. Yeah, it has some pretty big weak spots in it. It used to be high ABR though, did it? Oh no, that's the other one. I'm thinking of the wrong one. And not low because its armor is inconsistent, but okay. Maybe once it gets faster, I like it more. The T44-100 is fun, but I might like the 671 better. I thought I'd like the ZSU-57-2 more. Got any tips? The ZSU-57-2 for me is a pretty overhyped vehicle. You need to get the APC-BC on it for a start, and then you need to use it as a tank destroyer. You don't use it as an AA. As an AA, it's worthless. But in order to use it as a tank destroyer, what you have to do is you have to get on the flanks of the enemy, and you have to basically just hit them from the side with 1 or 2 taps. So bang, move, bang, move, bang, move. And that's not easy to do. Okay, that's definitely not easy to do for a lot of people, and it can lead to a bunch of issues happening with the vehicle. It's a super boom and bust vehicle, so a lot of the time you will just get annihilated, but most of the time, you know, or some of the time you'll be able to do a lot of damage. And it's just kind of up in the air how you're actually doing it, which is nuts to think about, and why it can be a little bit all over the place. That's why I prefer like consistent vehicles over that. I'm not a huge fan of things like that just because of its inconsistency. I very much prefer other vehicles that I know what I'm going to get out of them instead of the lightly armored stuff, you know, which can kind of just get you killed a lot of the time. Oops. USA, the M46 is great. I really like it. People have told me it's bad, but I don't see it. No, the M46 is fine. It's a very standard medium tank. The issue it has is, you know, you have to get the heat FS for it to function properly, and the heat FS can be a bit hard to grind out. Nowadays, with the buffs to the other rounds, the AP rounds, it's in a lot better position. But many people have played it where it didn't have that. The big thing that's nice about the M46 is the mobility of it. Is a big upgrade over a lot of the other vehicles that you play around that BR for America. The T92 is finally playable with APDS. Now it can actually damage stuff. Nice. I've got to start spawning the T95 first because waiting to drive it late match in the spawn-based map's a pain. Yep, it's slow as all hell. And you'll also get bombed over and over and over again. So, it's not going to work too well. Hey, Kawam-chan, nice to see you. Good old Papers, please. Fun game to watch. I didn't have a good time playing it, though. I was pretty bad at it. Anyways, I got the IS-3, which is annoyingly slow and feels a bit underpowered in general for 7.3. But I might eat my words after I spade the damn thing. I started playing the Chewy 2 and it actually is playable. I need to get used to it though, because I don't want to touch the 5.7 Japanese tanks. Because I've spaded them in the US, so I've got to grind the 6.3 with it. Yeah, that is kind of annoying. Sorry for taking too long, but I got to add another thing. Why is Britain? Why is Arkansas and not... What is it? Why is it Kansas and not Arkansas? America, explain. After 4.7, you get 2 5.3 tanks. That's stock 4.7 fly, but worse, and then a single 6.0, one before 6.3. What am I supposed to do? Great question. Welcome to APDS and why it's seen as so powerful, even though it really isn't. That's the major issue with it. Play the 2.5.3 by themselves or bring the 4.7 ones with them, or should I bring them at 6.0 with the Centurion? I just want the 7.7 lineup, man. Why do I have to play the Comet? The Comet's not that bad. The optics are the most annoying part of the Comet. Yeah, the optics are really annoying. But the vehicle itself isn't too bad. Like it's okay. I would just run them at 5.7. I don't think it would be too bad to run them at 5.7. I think you'll have a fine time with them. So just do them at 5.7 and then move on to the 6.3s. It is a bit janky around that lineup for Britain. I'm not gonna lie. So does kind of suck. But c'est la vie. It be how it is. Then we have Tony Christie. Let's just see what this says. You aren't wrong, because without enduring confrontation, bombers and CAS really have no place, and in today's deathmatch, Call of Duty gameplay, and if it's not a fighter plane, then it's useless by design. Well, in naval and ground they have a point, but if you mean in like air, then they definitely have a point in arcade. Like at the end of the day, even with like all the heavy bombers running around and stuff, because you can bring those multiple lineups, they can be pretty useful. The only place they really struggle, honestly, is realistic. Like if you think about it, those vehicles have a place in pretty much every single game mode, which is weird to think about. Also adding that Gaijin single-handedly ruined bombers' damage models and crew to appease dogfighters who couldn't take one out in a single shot by themselves. Right. However, they still advertise the game as the most realistic game with over 2,000 playable ground vehicles. And naval, all modeled on real-life vehicles, in my condescending voice. But I digress. Long of the short is, without the addition of enduring confrontation, or something like it for the long haul, even for the newer modern airplanes they keep adding to the game, this game will not last, because close quarter combat with no gameplay is starting to get old real quick. Fair enough. Like, I hope they expand on the enduring confrontation stuff. They've obviously expanded on it in Sim, and in Air Realistic, and also in Naval, so, hopefully people are happy with that. I don't know if they're going to expand on it when it comes to the World War mode stuff in the future. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, who knows. There's always an opportunity for that, but we'll have to see. But yeah, I agree. Games have to evolve. Games have to continue, keep pushing forward. If they keep doing the same stuff over and over and over again, it's not going to work, right? And in War Thunder, it's evolved in a lot of ways. When it comes to, different maps, different vehicles, different mechanics, and stuff like that. The one way it hasn't really evolved is the objectives, in terms of the maps and what what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. All of that is pretty much stayed the same. That is, obviously dull for people. When you have a ever-changing environment and a constant changing setup, usually if you have an area which doesn't change, it gets hyper-focused on. And at the moment, that's pretty much what it is in War Thunder. And it would be nice if they do. They added in the SAM stuff, right? Like they added in the different things to destroy in a high tier aviation. The SAM sites and the missile sites and the big old the rocket launchers and things like that. So maybe there is work being done in there. We'll have to see. Hey Len, nice to see you. If not, I'm sure it'll be something that goes on. What we really need once again is people to actually come along and make some stuff. Let's see what's available to be out there, Maybe I'll start a series, going through different maps and what people have been created. Maybe I can run my own map competitions. What do you think? Do you think we should do it? It's definitely a possibility. We have some money in the kitty right now, so could put some towards it. Could be nice. Yeah, sure. You know what? I'll have a think. Okay, I'll have a think. If Rome doesn't get built, then you have to build Rome. Probably something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I'll have a think. Then we have Hunt. Can they just please nerf the AA of AI ships? It's almost useless to play with planes below 5,000 meters. I mean, I'd go for no. So after playing a lot of naval the last period of time, one of the problems that I've had is pretty simple. The issue is there are the encounter maps. Now, encounter maps are where like one side of forces sees the other side in like two convoys, and then you have to destroy the other's convoy. And what's happening is because a lot of the time after a while, the forces become stationary and become stagnant. They just don't move. And then what people do is they just get in a bomber and then they just bang, 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 bang. And they just do that over and over again. And what that means is, each one of them is worth like, I think 1,000 score or something like that. So if you destroy like 4 or 5 of them, you basically won the match single-handedly because the AA doesn't deal with them. So kind of sucks. I wish it was different. I'm going to be honest. I wish there was a different way it was set up. Whether it is the AI can move or they have better AA defenses, I'm not sure. But right now, the way that it works is not great because it comes down to the ships not really mattering unless you have really long distance torpedoes. And instead, it's just more about whoever gets in a plane first and can do that, which, I mean, just isn't as fun. Like, it's just boring to play against and boring to play for as well. It's like in ground forces when, once again, somebody gets in a CAS element and then ends up just annihilating everything around them. It's not really fun to play against. You don't feel like you've been beaten. You just feel like you've been cheesed, basically. So yeah, simple as. I think they should add the SAM sites since top tier and have them aggressively shoot at CAS. Boom, 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 boom time. Go crazy. But yeah, I think in general, I think AA is not in a terrible place. There's always this weird balance between AI and players, right? Like, and it's something that is pretty much impossible to get right. Oh dear. This is not going to be good for me. It's pretty much impossible to get right because of the fact that you have to try and balance out what is fair in terms of what the player gets, and then also what doesn't feel cheap, because that's obviously another part that happens quite a lot. What's the better ship overall, the Nevada or the Arizona? I'm not sure. No idea. I'd like to see a Berlin map for air sim and limit it to World War II bombers. Also, I'd add trench targets, like you have an ARB to air sim, so you have some targets for attackers and bombers. Yeah, that could work. That'd be nice. We'll have to see during the event how many people use sim to grind out the event. It's probably going to be quite a lot. They can get a lot of stats from there on how to balance it out. Do 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 do. But yeah, we'll have to see what goes on. Alright, well that's the end of the comments on the tech talk. Do any of you guys have any questions about anything that we're doing live? This week we're just going to be playing a lot of War Thunder, I think. Not really doing too much else, because obviously we have the naval event. I'm getting the coupon on the naval event. I've decided that's what I'm gonna do. Just because, you know, it's not too hard to get, and also I have a lot of like cruisers to grind out, so kind of prioritizing that, just getting them done and having a bit of fun with them. Hey, Bosun, nice to see you. When LA Noire or Mafia 2 playthrough? I do have LA Noire. I don't think I have Mafia 2. LA Noire we could actually set up pretty soon. How long does the game take? Because it has been sat there for a while. What do you think of the American 9.0 to 10.7 experience? I think it's fine. They have vehicles which are super useful in pretty much all the BRs. You know, obviously it can be annoying that your teams kind of fall apart, but that's not the problem with the vehicles. The vehicles are pretty fun to play. When GTA 6 comes out, will you play it more than War Thunder? Probably not. I still haven't finished GTA 5, so... At some point on stream, we're gonna have to finish GTA 5. I don't know how far I'm through it, but it's on even my old hard drive. I never even put it on my new one. Crazy. I do actually want to see if something like that could work as a way to tone down cast effectiveness. Yeah, I don't see why it couldn't. It could tone it down. It's just it would probably feel cheap. That's the problem. Like, do you think you will? And people will just work out how to cheese it, just like they do Airfield AA. So it'll work great for like a week, and then it'll only just catch people out who aren't paying attention. But yeah, I think LA Noire could be one that we do pretty soon, because it's based in chapters, right? So you do like one chapter, and then you do the next chapter. So it'd be quite easy to sort out. It's 22 hours long. Mafia 2 is 12. Oh. But with Mafia 2, we should probably do the first one first, right? I thought it was a lot longer, Mafia. That's not bad, actually. I don't know if I have it or not. Alright, let's see. Because I know I have, like, one of the Mafias, if I remember. Because they just released one of the definitive editions, didn't they? Let's just see. No, I don't have the Mafias. I have LA Noire, though. We could definitely do that one. That one could be fun. In 22 hours, I mean, that would take us probably like 2 weeks. I mean, it could work. We'd have to sacrifice quite a lot, but we could get it done. Well, they nerf AI ships in naval. They always infinite ammo with their guns, and they don't get overheated. I don't think I've ever been killed by an AI ship. Have you been killed by AI ships a lot? They don't seem very good in naval. Like, unless they get, like, super close to you. But yeah. Last night I played France in air sim at 9097. Used high percentage boosters. And one match, I kept on dying to a T2, had his convoy open. Oh, that sucks. I'm almost done with the first battle pass task, and I'll go do the SPG task. Nice. Yeah, I finished that one off pretty quick, but you get a lot of assists in naval, so. Oh, the anti-air fair, yeah. The anti-air can be a bit obnoxious. Yeah, I can see why that would be kind of annoying. Right, let's end the tech talk. We'll continue streaming as always, but look after yourselves, and remember, if you have any other things that you want to put in the tech talk, stick it in the comments. Look after yourselves. Peace be with you. Bye-bye.